Welcome to On Second Thought. I'm John Price, and I'm here with our pastor, Jay Hackett, where every week we take a deeper dive into life at Peachtree Corners Baptist Church. Whether we're talking about the latest sermon, upcoming events, or just whatever's on Jay's mind, this is your insider look at our church, our staff, and what makes PCBC your church on the corner. So join our conversation as we help you find community, purpose, and growth. Let's get into it. Well, hello, and thank you for joining us for On Second Thought. And we are into May.
We are in May.
And a lot of stuff coming this month already.
Crazy. Started
last weekend.
Yep.
With just kind of stage of life stuff, a new series. But how was your weekend? You had a kind of an interesting one.
The weekend was good. We went up to Trent McConnell, which is where Griff is going, and we kind of had her acceptance day was there, and so they had 50-something students and all their parents, and making sure that everything's signed up, everything's good to go, all the financial resources that we could get are available. And so, we're at that season of life right now for us that we're trying to go, okay, she's moving out. She's going to be on her own this fall. And is she ready? Is she not ready? Have we done everything we could do? But it was a great weekend. She had not found a roommate, and she had been responding back and forth with several people on this app. I don't know what it is. Amy and I said it was kind of like, speed dating or something. I was like, are you on a dating app over there? And so Amy goes, you're getting catfished. And I was like, no, you're not. No, she really got close with a girl. And so the moment they saw each other on Saturday, she left me and Amy. And, just kind of spent the day hanging out with Leah, and which was really cool. And then at the end of the day, they gathered everybody back together and did a raffle for a $1,000 scholarship, and Griffin won. And, it was awesome to know that we get $1,000 more off of that tuition,
Nice.
Which is always fantastic. But no, it was a great weekend. You can tell she's kind of anxious and excited all in the same breath, trying to figure out her next steps and what's going to happen. But man, had a great weekend. How about you?
Had a very great and unremarkable weekend. Got to just kind of have Sabbath.
Nice.
It started out on Saturday a little earlier than I like. And a chair update for those of you who are waiting on bated breath from last week's episode. Met a couple guys here at the church 8 a.m. on Saturday, and loaded up the rest of those old red chairs that were in the hallway. So got done with those. So that'll help another church.
And they went to a church, right?
Yes, yeah. So we gave those to them. That'll help them out tremendously. Certainly helps us. And we do have still a bunch of chairs that are in, states of disrepair that are kind of lining the fellowship hallway that we have to figure out what to do with. So,
founding members, do we want to give those to them? And
surprise guests.
Just got to say
thank you. Leave some on their doorstep, knock and run away.
Just knock and run away. We could try that.
I think you're onto something. But after that, just kind of went home, and April and I had our Saturday brunch and kind of our time of going over the previous week, the next week's goals and schedule and all that kind of stuff. And then, I can't even remember. We just kind of spent the day together doing errands and not
How long
much.
have you been married?
28 years.
28 years. What's the key to having your wife want to be with you after 28 years of marriage? I'm asking for a friend. I'm not asking for me personally.
I'll let you know. Keeping your mouth shut a lot. It has a lot to do with it. Just not being dumb. And we're both real busy, and she commutes a lot during the week. And so it's not that we are always together. It's that we know that we're not. And so that Saturday we try to protect. And when we kind of use that as our, okay, let's talk about the week. What are we learning? Let's talk about next week. It really kind of starts us in a good place, and we're able to communicate stuff that we need to talk about. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. So that helps. And some mornings it's really deep conversation. Some it's like, my eggs are not how I want. Or I wish they would hurry up and bring my coffee. Or I don't like sitting in the outside part. And that's usually me complaining.
Yes,
but
yes.
And she's the one that usually has the deep thoughts. But no, that it was a good weekend. And then Sunday was a great day.
Yeah.
As well.
Had a great turnout, and just kind of diving into our new series and kind of figuring out, that idea of legacy. And as I brought up Sunday, sometimes we just think, oh, that's later. That's after I'm gone.
Think about that when I'm 60, 70, 80.
That's fourth quarter stuff.
Yeah.
I don't need to deal with that if I'm in first, second, or third quarter. I'll deal with that somewhere down the road. And, the thought was, no, we deal with it now, right? Because the statement I made multiple times on Sunday was legacy doesn't happen by chance. It happens by choice. And so the decisions that we're making now, the choices we're making now, every one of those things is speaking to our legacy. And, we get to help determine what's said about us once the fourth quarter ends and, we go to be with God in glory. But until then, it's like, okay, I want to make wise choices, wise decisions. And, I think we're in a season of life where we're watching those that are in third and fourth quarter fall. Right. It's almost like they've taken their foot off the gas somewhere towards the end and trying to coast.
Yeah.
And, I love the fact you were mentioning, you and April talk about goals and learning and different things like that. It's like, we haven't arrived. Mm-hmm. And so we want to continue to keep the pedal down, so to speak, so that we can continue to grow and we can continue to become, because, it doesn't matter if you have a lifetime of great choices. It's one bad choice somewhere down the road that ends up killing your legacy. And it almost like it makes it null and void, to what was done before that. Now, we know that in Christ it doesn't make that null and void.
Right.
But in today's culture, I think immediately they'll give you one mistake, right? And then it's like, all right, I can't follow him anymore, or I can't listen to that anymore. And so it's a lot of responsibility, really. But it's not based on us; it's based on him.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and people that blow it, it's not exclusively in their later years, but but why? I mean, why do you think that is? What is it? Just kind of an easing, on the gas, or is it retirement? Is it believing your own press? Is it?
I'm thinking it's it's this time, right? It's usually when I get in the most trouble is when I have ample time. And I don't have my time, really divided out, looked at, and being intentional with how I spend my time.
Right.
But I think sometimes it could come after retirement because of that. It's like all of a sudden now I have all this ample time on my hand. I'm not doing the things that I used to do. In a ministry aspect, I think a lot of it is reading your own press. A lot of these guys think I've arrived, I've made it. I'm at a position that I can't be taken down. Gordon McDonald, who I love.
No, absolutely.
And, and he fell in ministry. But one of the things it's interesting in reading his story and hearing him tell it, he said it started with speeding.
Like in driving? Speeding?
Yeah, driving, like speeding. He said, I used to never speed. He said that was a thing for me. I just knew this is the speed limit. This is what I'm driving. And he said, then all of a sudden, now I know this is not pertaining to.
That is such a foreign thought.
John and I have never sped a day.
I'm in trouble.
Yeah. But for him, that was like a guardrail that he had set up for himself.
Yeah.
And what he said is he goes, it wasn't the big thing that led to his fall. It was the little things. where he started just compromising.
Yeah.
And saying, okay, 5 miles over is not bad.
Right.
8 miles over is not bad. 10 miles over is not bad. And so to hear him lay out his story and say it started here, that ultimately led me
just that creep
to that little creep that begins to happen. And whether that's self-dependence, of going, God, I'm good, I got this, or maybe I can, I can come up with it on my own. I'm good enough. I'm talented enough that I can do this. That you just start believing that instead of being completely depending. And apart from you, I can do nothing. I'm in desperate need of you today. I'm in desperate need of you this moment. And I think that's
you think of King David, and it said, King David, when was it in the spring when kings go to war, and it was kind of setting up the story, letting you know David wasn't where he was supposed to be, and it was that he had kind of taken a lot of free time and was relaxing, not doing what he was called to do. And so I do think, what is it, idle hands are the devil's playground. And I do think there's something in our culture that, that promise of retirement, which is not a biblical concept. It's okay, you're going to get this age and then you can stop. And certainly, that might be with a career. But people kind of extend that all the way. Is it, well, I'm not going to work in the church, or I'm not going to, and this idea of just, I'm going to sit on the beach, I'm going to sit in a rocking chair or sit in my lazy boy. I think that's, from what I understand, fun for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then if you don't have a purpose, and if you're not staying busy,
it comes from that.
Right.
I mean, you can watch people just go south so quickly when they lose that purpose.
Right.
Because so many times we wrap that purpose in our job or in what we do, and that becomes our identity. And now it's like, who am I?
Yeah.
I don't even know who I am anymore,
Well, I know Erwin McManus was talking about this in his podcast with his son, talking about in his 70s. People are like, how have you not had some kind of, scandal in your ministries? Like, I really am too busy. I've got so many things. And I used to work with a pastor who used the illustration of it's the horses in the field that are just standing there that have to swat the flies. The ones that are running aren't bothered by the flies. They're busy. They're going. And I think, there's something, as long as we're here, as long as we're drawing breath, we need to lean into what God has gifted us to do and called us to do. And
absolutely, that's one of the things I love about like our ladies ministry right now with the mentoring, right? Because I think that's the biggest. People are like, I don't know what I have to offer, right? I've been there, I've done that. I don't necessarily want to go work with kids again. I don't want to do X, Y, and Z. But it's like, no, you've got a story, and God has used you. You've been through some stuff, and you've overcome some stuff. And we have so many young families in this church that are looking for a mentor, someone that can go, hey, how'd you get there? I mean, we do it in business, right? Networking. Don't you love that term? You throw it out there and you go, hey, I need to find somebody that's further along the line than I am. And just ask the good questions, the difficult questions, the hard, hey, how'd you do it? And all those things are great. But from a spiritual standpoint, it's like, okay, how did you keep your faith in the midst of never having children, in the midst of, struggling in your marriage, because I guarantee you everybody that's made it 50 plus years in marriage, they hadn't been 50 good years. I mean, there've been some ups, some downs. There's been some very difficult times that they've been through. And, early on, sometimes you think, are we going to make it?
Right.
And so just talking to somebody that's been to the other side, so to speak, and go, hey, tell me what you did, and it's not, hey, we did this right. It was, we messed up a lot along the way. And, but through God's grace, we were able to say, we're not walking away from this. We're going to keep walking towards each other. We're going to keep butting heads until we can figure it out. And we're going to get advice. We're going to seek, the scripture. We're going to pray together. We're going to long together and go, hey, I want to be in this relationship, and I'm not jumping ship. And so I think that's something where, the most thing I'm proud of, I would say, and it's not a arrogance, but it's just God, thank you for allowing us to be a multi-generational church.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because that to me is the greatest joy, is when we look out and go, okay, hey, we have people that can help mentor. We have some people that could step up. And right now they may be thinking, oh, I don't know. I don't know that we could do that. Yeah, you can.
Well, there's still, it's still human nature to kind of gravitate towards people who are like you and same age or stage of life. And so if we didn't have intentional things like the mentoring program, it would still be, yes, we're multi-generational, but it basically means we have different aged life groups and people come and worship together, and some enjoy it and some it's not their cup of tea because it's not how, when they were young. And so things like that, whenever I've had to do funerals for some older folks, and especially if they weren't really involved,
mm-hmm.
I don't know really what to say about them because I don't know who they were and, who they were recently. Wasn't a whole lot to them.
Mm-hmm.
They just kind of, well, I've lived my life. And I think, as people get older, one of the things that they mourn when their friends are dying, if they're in their 70s or their 80s, is that's one less person who knows my story.
Correct.
It's one less person that shared these experiences with me, whether it's, getting this church to how it is and I think relationships are so important. So it's one of the reasons why we started the Craftsmen
mm-hmm.
Team, and I was so excited Sunday when we opened that up to have like 25 guys come forward after the service to express interest in it, and different ages.
They were coming to get saved. I was so excited, and then I realized they were coming to be part of the Craftsmen.
They are. They just don't realize it yet. Through craftsmanship.
Yes.
No, but we had people from different generations, either that enjoy that or want to learn that,
mm-hmm.
and so I'm excited about what might transpire in the relationships. Yeah. Of some of the older guys mentoring,
mm-hmm.
and guys are different than girls. You just whisper Bible study and you'll get, 60 women.
Yeah.
Guys, it's you gotta, there has to be an element of danger. I could lose a finger,
yes.
or I
yes.
could, lose an eye. And so I am excited about some of the younger folks meeting and getting to know some of the older guys and vice versa,
mm-hmm.
because those relationships, it creates this sense of empathy,
mm-hmm.
of ethos, of caring about people that aren't necessarily in your demographic.
Correct.
And that's what truly makes us multi-generational.
Yeah.
Not that we just happen to worship in the same building.
No.
But that we care about each other.
We do care. And that's legacy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's really what it comes down to and back to.
Thanks for bringing that back.
Yeah.
And,
every now
nicely
and then.
Nicely done. Because I was like, where did this start? How do I land this plane?
Two ADHD guys doing a podcast. It's hard to stay on topic.
Right.
But, that thought of going, okay, what do I want to be known for? How can I help others? And it's not, I have so much to offer. It's just, hey, I want to be used. God, if you can use me in somebody's life, then that's what I pray you would do. And sometimes we don't even know necessarily that we're doing it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not that we've set out to, I'm going to take these 6 gentlemen or these 6 ladies and I'm going to,
Sure.
give them everything I have.
Right.
More it's just your presence and the conversations that happen. I know with men, a lot more is caught than taught. And so it's like, okay, how'd you handle that? What'd you do? Some of the best times that we had, early on in my ministry here was I would be invited to certain men's groups, and we would go out together to dinner. And the topic would turn to, all right, they'd look at some of the older guys in the group and go, okay, how'd you handle your kids when they were 4? How'd you handle your kids when they were 14? What'd you do when they started driving? How did you handle college? So it's like, okay, there's nothing formal that's happening here, but it's just, all right, give me.
It's not around a book.
No.
It's not around a video.
No. And it was
not
so
that those
funny.
things are bad, but
No.
the real stuff happens in relationship,
Correct.
in dialogue. Yeah.
And it was awesome because one of the guys would be, we just gave him freedom. They were making great decisions, and we just continued to do that. And the other guy was like, nope, absolutely not. We had these parameters. We set this up. And so it was neat in the fact of going, there's so many options for what we can do, right?
Well, and I think that, that verse, train up a child in the way they should go, there's some translate that in the way they are bent. And so if you are working with wood or something like that, you see, okay, where's the grain? And you might have some kids that were like, okay, they're the kind of kid that I can trust. They make wise decisions. And you have some kids who are like, I got to keep a short leash on this one. Yeah. At least right now, let them make dumb mistakes, but keep the guardrails on so that hopefully once they're out of the house, they're going to not just implode. But yeah, I think a lot of it is in parenting is knowing your kid.
Yeah, it is. And, it's figuring that kind of stuff out, birth order, all that stuff plays into it. And,
temperament. We have 2 kids and they're so
different,
totally different.
Yes. Yeah.
And
you think, okay, this is how we're going to parent.
Right.
And then it's like child 2 comes along, child 3 comes along, and you're like, who are you? I don't even know you because you're so different from your sibling. But
I don't think at any point, April and I looked at each other and said, okay, we got this. We got this licked. I think one is because our first one was so strong-willed. We were always just, how do we handle this? And both smart kids, wonderful kids. Just we had to figure out, okay, how do we parent these guys? Mm-hmm. And we did it differently for each one.
Well, when we both stopped with 2. There are some families out there that, 3, 4, 5, and 6, I think they just give up somewhere along the way and just go, hey, child 5 can figure it out.
I've heard if you can do 3, you can do 10. So I don't speak from experience.
More power to you.
Yeah. But, we were like, we're good with man on man. And, we never had to go to a zone.
Yeah. So no, and that was the very discussion Amy and I had. We were like, I don't want zone defense. We're going to go with 2, and we're done, and everything is good from this point forward.
Yeah.
But it is a constant thought of going, okay, what is the legacy I'm leaving to my kids? What is the legacy I'm leaving? Where I work, what I do, all those kind of questions that come to mind. And as we talked about Sunday from Psalm 1, talking about that path. Right. Which path am I choosing?
Right.
And I used to love Andy Stanley used to make the comment, and he said it's direction, not intention, that determines your destination.
Right.
And it's like, that's a good thought. Really of going, okay, you may head north on 85 and say, I'm going to Florida. Well, you may have the greatest intention of ending up in Florida, but if you go north on 85, you're not headed to Florida.
Right.
And I think so many times what we do is we think, I want to do what God wants me to do, but directionally, we're not heading in that direction. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's like at the end,
no, it's like if I want to lose 20 pounds, my intention is to lose 20 pounds. My direction is I'm not changing my exercise, my diet, which, Andy is great at those pithy statements, yes. the ones that stick in your mind, but truly it's not your intention. No, if your direction shows your intention, mm-hmm. right?
It does.
And so, yeah, that he does have some great ones. And around legacy, and with one of the things we'll celebrate this month is graduation, and Logan will preach. That's in a couple weeks
on the 18th.
But talking to them about legacy starts now. One of the things when I was a youth pastor, I would give them Andy's talk on, I think it was called the greatest or the wisest choice or the greatest choice ever, something like that. The most important question? I don't know. Anyways, it was, I remember the phrase, the question is according to my past experiences, my present circumstances, and my future hopes and dreams, what is the wise thing to do? Mm-hmm. And so that really is a great model to think about. According to my past experiences, I've done this before. It didn't work out so well.
Yeah.
Or when I succeed, it's because I've done these things. Or mm-hmm. I'm in this circumstance right now, and or here's what I hope to be. That's a great grid work to kind of use.
Yeah, it is. And, the psalmist was saying it's you start walking, you start standing,
Yes,
you start sitting.
I love that. The progression, like you said.
Yes, of this is happening. And I think because we've become numb, sometimes we don't recognize that we're doing that, right? And you go, well, no. I start off my morning with 5 minutes in the Word. And so, I'm solid. And you go, okay, yeah, but according to your screen time, you spent 7 hours, on social media today. Right. And you're like, okay, so does my 5 minutes in the Word outdo my 7 hours of social media?
Yeah.
And it's like this constant battle of going, okay, I'm listening to him, but what is the influence, right? And where is that really directionally taking me? I think sometimes it's sobering, and I think that's the part that as you look at this, do I truly delight in God's Word? Do I? And we can say we do. I had a pastor ask me one time, he said, how's your soul? And I was like, it is what I really didn't know how to respond to that question because it just seemed so far out of left field to me. I'm like, what do you mean, how's my soul? And he goes, no, how's your walk? How you doing? And I said, well, it's not as good as I want it to be, was my response to him. And we continued the conversation. And about 30 minutes later, I turned back and I said, no, I owe you an apology. I said, this is exactly where I want it to be. And I said, because I'm not doing anything different to change it. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
so,
right.
I mean, in essence, to go back to what you were saying, it is not the intention. I'd love to be closer to him and delight more in his Word and all these kind of things. And it's just not where I want it to be. And I'm like, well, why is it not where I want it to be? It's because I haven't done anything to change it.
Because it's not really my intention.
Because it's not really my intention.
Yeah.
It's like I want to be able to have it, but I don't want it to, completely take over every aspect of my body and everything that I'm thinking and doing and being. It's like, I just kind of want it there so that I can say, hey, God, I'm in a tight spot, help me out.
Yeah.
Or do I really long to go, God, I really want every decision, every thought. We're in such a high-paced world, but just every fork in the road to go, Lord, what do I do? I want your guidance here. I don't want to just go, based off past experiences and go, hey, I went left last time, I'm going to go right this time, or I want to go left again. I always think of The Rock and hitting the rock for water. And, all of a sudden he's like, yeah, no.
Dwayne Johnson.
Yes, I always think of The Rock.
What would The Rock
He had a
do?
move. No. But just thinking about, I did this last time, let me do it again. And because of that, you're disobedient, don't get to see the promised land ultimately, right?
Yeah,
And it's like, Lord, I don't want to just do it because we've done it before or because that's, maybe at that point in my life, that's where I was to do that. But where am I today? My father-in-law and I always talk about the fact that, how Scripture speaks to us differently at times. The Scripture hasn't changed. We've changed, right? Our heart's in a different spot than it was the last time we came across Psalm 1. And so maybe now I'm more receptive to understanding what it means to be planted, what it means to really bear the fruit that God wants me to bear and to really be green, and all these different things because we want our lives to matter.
Yeah.
I think that's the key. And so, Sunday was just kind of that kickoff to get us thinking about legacy and, what is the impact that I'm having? Is it as good as it could be?
Yeah.
That kind of a thing.
This Sunday is Mother's Day.
This Sunday is Mother's Day. And so the legacy of a mother.
It's a big week. It's a big day.
Mom, a big part of your life?
Yeah, absolutely. Still talk to her and Dad on the reg
until June. So just Mom.
Yeah, we get the short stick.
Short stint. Yes. Yeah. But it'll be fun to do that this Sunday. And then we also have our parent dedication, which happens on Mother's Day for us.
Not child dedication.
Not child dedication. No, parent dedication, that you're saying you will raise the child in a home that fears the Lord, reverences the Lord, and that you will do everything in your power, because a parent's first responsibility is to disciple their kids. And so, we get to do that at the end of our service this week. We've got 9 families that are going to be a part of that, and 13 kids that are being brought before the church and before the Lord. And so I'm real excited to be able to celebrate that.
That's cool.
Sunday. Yeah, man.
Yeah. And that kind of, that celebration, that ceremony is not just the parents, but it's the congregation committing as well. Kind of that it takes a village.
It does take a village.
We recognize our role in helping these kids to come alongside the parents with. We're helping with VBS, which there is still a need. There's an action step. If you're not helping with VBS coming up, there is still a need. Or teaching a life group, or helping, coaching one of the little teams here that we have. Lots of ways for the church to commit. Mm-hmm. And like you kind of alluded to earlier, kids may not be your thing as far as children's ministry, but prayer, giving, there are other ways that we can be involved in that. So yeah, it's a commitment all the way around. The children have the least commitment of the whole ceremony. So
yeah,
but that's always kind of been funny to me. It's just
a special time, and I'm really excited to continue to see so many families that are taking this step and saying, hey, you know what, God's called us here, and we love this church, we love being connected, and this is who we want to do life with. And, we understand it's our responsibility as parents to disciple our kids, but we're thankful for a partnership that comes from, being alongside of a great church that's going to help us grow and, challenge us from time to time, and how we parent, and the thoughts that we have, the things that we do. And, the great thing is when we fail, you got a group of people there to pick you right back up. It's not a chastise you and point at you when you fall. It's a, hey, I'm going to pick you up when you fall. And guess what? When I do, pick me up as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And, kind of working back in that idea of legacy is when we look at, okay, what are we leaving behind? Fortunately, we have that element of grace because, even in parenting, my kids are out of the house, but as we've grown, as we've learned, as we've looked back and evaluated, there's been times where, it's not, it's too late, but where we've said, we've had to go to them and say, we were doing the best we could, but I blew it. I recognize that, and I'm sorry. And there are just times that you get to have those conversations instead of just saying, well, that happened, and nothing we can do about that, that God can reconcile those things and redeem those relationships still. And the relationship with our kids as they grow continues to change. The dynamics of it change. But it's not just that they're growing up, but we are continuing to grow. That's part of our legacy as well, is are we continuing to grow so that we can be there for them? And because a lot of stuff, we know this in our own lives, we deal with stuff from way back sometimes, so we know that our kids are too. And if we can help with that by saying, yeah, I didn't do it as well as I could have, or I didn't give you what you needed, or I apologize. And having those conversations, that helps them to have a smoother, healthier experience in life and relationship with you. And
correct.
But no, that's
and it's hard sometimes, because you caregiver to coach to cheerleader, now it's, you're making your own decisions, you're doing your own thing, you're out of our house, but we're still here. And want to cheer you on, want the best for you. Maybe not necessarily agree with every decision you're making.
Sure.
But, hey, we love you. And, we want the ultimate best. And, the good news is when we fail at parenting, it gives people something to talk about to their therapist. Right. And that's what I always tell my kids.
I've always told my kids, I got to give you something to talk about to your therapist.
I told Dad the other day, I said, my therapist is right. It is all your fault. And he was like, don't put this crap on me. And I was like, you got it, Pop. It's always y'all.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there's a balance.
There is a huge balance. So, and, it's on the job training. And, you fail, you forgive, you move forward, and you go, okay, let's see if we can get it right next time. But legacy is constantly being built. And my prayer is through this series, and there's so much more than even what we'll be able to talk about in this series, but perhaps it spurs on a desire to go a little deeper and to, really contemplate, how am I living my life and what impact am I having? And God, do you want to use me for something greater? And I think all of us want that. And so we may say, I'd really like that, but do I really want that? And am I willing to put in the work to get there? I think that's key.
And you've had some great feedback already, week one.
Yeah.
And so as you listen to this episode, as you join us on Sundays, whether in person or online, because I know a lot of you are, you have family stuff this month. What do we say? If you're in town,
in church.
In church, yeah. And if you're out of town,
you're online. That's right.
Right. But as you go about this very busy, crazy month, be thinking about that idea of legacy, of the legacy of those who have poured into your life, of the legacy that you're leaving. And if you have kids or those people that you influence, how you're showing them what true important legacy looks like as you influence those. But thank you so much for making this a part of your time, for joining us in our conversation. I hope that you got something out of it. Anything else you wanna bring up, add, any action steps? Or have we given them enough?
No, I think we've given enough, yeah.
All right.
I mean, they probably want to hear more about chairs, but...
Stay tuned next week.
Stay tuned, yeah.
We'll give you another chair update. So, But thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we hope to see you on Sunday. God bless.
Well, that's it for this episode of On Second Thought. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this with a friend. If you have a question or thought, drop it in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to find out more about your church on the corner, check us out at pcbchurch.org. We'll be back next week with more. So until then, have a great week and God bless.